Welcome to the video solution for Workout Wednesday for Power BI of 2023, week 24. In this week, we are visualizing change between 2 points in time by using the Deneb custom visual. We are using a very simple data set that comes from the One Dataset 100 Visualizations project. And in a previous challenge, we used the core visuals, the built-in visuals in Power BI. This time, we are using Deneb to make visuals that are either impossible or very difficult using core visuals or some free custom visuals. So I chose 3 specific out of the 100 visualizations to attempt in Deneb, and we got our lollipop chart, our slope graph, and our dumbbell plot. The data is 3 countries and 2 different years. These are the number of UNESCO World Heritage Sites. And we will use that data in Power Query to manipulate it to get it into a better shape to create our visualizations and just make the visualizations. So let's get started. So I'm starting from scratch. Our data doesn't have a source that we query from. We actually just paste it in. So this is the data that we can see on the source site. I'm going to name this World Heritage Sites. And then we need to flip this. Right now we've got a column per country. I'm going to I'm going to unpivot other columns, and I'll rename this country sites. And now we have it in tabular format instead of a matrix. Depending on how you do this, you may want to add a custom column called country sort, because we want to keep the same order of countries in our visuals. You can also set this in Deneb. We can use an apply here, give it a second to load. Country to sort by country sort. Write our country sort. Set our summarization on year. And there's our base table. We'll need to add a couple of DAX measures. The data had 2 years, 2004 and 2022. So I'm adding a measure that gives us each of those years. That's 2022. There's 2004. And then in one of our charts, we need to see the difference. So I'll add a percent change measure. And it's just the 2022 value minus the 2004 value over the 2004 value. And we use divide, which we happen to know there's always data in this case, but is usually a safe bet to handle your divide by 0 errors. And there's our measures. To prep the page, make it look just like mine. We used a light gray color, set the transparency a bit. I just have a text box with the information at the top and the icon to the Data Viz project. If you don't already have your Deneb Visual, you need to go get it from App Source. You can add it to the page. To populate our fields. And now we can edit. I'm making a Vega light visual. And we can walk through this code. The data part is usually auto-populated for you. I had to create a transform to create the label here with the up arrow triangle and the percentage. So I used a Unicode value, concatenated that with a space, and then made the percent change have no decimal places. And I called that percent label. You could probably do this in a DAX measure as well. I chose to do it in Deneb. And then because this actually has a few pieces to it, I had to use vconcat, so I'm vertically concatenating things. And in the first visual, I am faceting by country. So I'm basically creating a visual per country, and then, a visual once, and then doing kind of a small multiple for each country. And I'm telling it how to sort here. So instead of using the country sort column that I made earlier, this is how I chose to do it. I didn't want a header on it. Set my spacing to 10. Set my alignment. And then here's the spec, which is how you have to use this syntax when you're doing the vconcat with the facet. So my encoding is, I'm using the year field. It's a nominal. Here's my axis definition. I didn't want any tick marks or grid lines or anything like that. I didn't want a title on it. I am labeling it, so I tried to use a consistent font size and color across my visuals. And then for this lollipop chart, instead of saying 2002, I'm only doing the last two digits. And there are a couple ways you could have done this, but I just did a big if statement since I know there's only two values. So if it was 2004, say 04, the double slashes are to escape the single quote. And then same thing for 2022. If it's 2022, say apostrophe 22. My Y values, and I could have used an explicit measure here, and best practice would say to do that, but in this case I just put it in to show that you can use it here with an implicit measure, but it's going to pop up as whatever name you gave it. If you didn't change the name, it's going to say sum of sites. It is a quantitative measure. I didn't want any labels or grid lines or anything on my y-axis, so the axis is null. And I'm defining the colors. So I color by country, and I set my order of countries back up here on line 16. So then my colors follow in that order as well. So I get Norway is a dark navy color, Denmark is red, and Sweden is blue. I didn't want a legend. So that concludes that portion. Then we have another layer. The layer is a rule with a stroke width of 2, the opacity is 1, and then a mark for the circle. So instead of this, thinking of this as one whole mark, it's actually 2. There's a circle and then there's a line. Then we have our facet again. We have our header. We told it should go on the bottom. No title. Again, same 12-point font size. So that takes us to the end of the facet. And then finally, we have our spec for the bottom part. We just have a text mark. We're aligning it in the center of our faceting. I did have to adjust a little bit and offset to try to make my different visuals line up appropriately so that the label for Norway is mostly aligned with the increase of 60%, which is pretty centered underneath our lollipops. And I chose to make that text bold for the 60%. Then again, encoding this percent label refers back to our transform at the top. So that gives us our first visual. I will leave that here for now. Add a new visual. So we need to add country, year, sum of sites, percent change again. And then we edit. This will be Vega Light as well. Let's walk through this JSON. So let's take a look at this slope graph. There's a few marks in here and then a couple of grid line formatting things. We're defining the consistent encoding at the top for the x-axis, which is the year. We don't have a title. We're putting the labels at the top. That's the orient with a label angle of 0. No ticks. The grid is true, and we've made the grid width 3, which makes it a little thicker, and font size of 14. Then we define our Y, which is sum of sites. We do want a grid, but it's thinner. We don't want tick marks, same font size, we did to a count of 3 to make it come out every 5. We define our colors based on the country field. And this one, we're not specifically sorting, so it goes in the basically alpha order. Or, sorry, it goes in the natural order. Then we get to our layer. So this is made up of 4 marks. Well, so this is made up of 3 marks. The first is our line that goes from 2004 to 2022. And this is how you make the slope graph as you do interpolate, bundle, tension 0, stroke with 3. All good there. Then we have further encoding. The X value is the max year, Y we're aggregating argmax year, and sum of sites. So then we have our next layer, starting here on line 61, and this is where we have our circle marks. So these are separate from the line, and I gave them a size of 50, so they'd be just big enough to show up and be noticeable. And we have to do a little transform here, a window transform. And then we are sorting by year, descending, and filtering our rank to 1, which is basically deduping. And I have a little calculate transform in here to make my percent change show up with 0 decimal places. And then I'm concatenating that string with country. So that's what gives us our nice labels. And that's our final mark in here. So we have text. We are left aligning, baseline middle, offsetting just a bit, bold font, size 12. That's our label, which again is our calculate from up above. And then here's our circle for min, sum of sites for the year. Same size as the other, 50. And we'll fix our sizes at the end. Oh, I don't need the percent change in this one. Got my fields populated. I'm going to go for empty. Here's my dumbbell plot. So our y-axis is the sum of sites. We didn't want a title on it. I set the domain max to 20 to have some more space up here. Our x-axis is our country. Didn't want a title for the axis. I did offset just a little. No ticks. 14-point font, label angle is 0. And then here we are using a shortened version of the country name, and since there were 3, it's basically like a big if statement. So if it's Denmark, it's DK. If it's Norway, NO. Sweden, SE. Otherwise, I just said empty string. And then we have our layer. So the first mark is a line. It is encoded for the detail for country, and I've colored it gray. The next mark is a point, and it is filled. and we give it a domain of the 2 different years, and we tell it what color to make each year. So it'll go 2004 is this color, 2022 is this color. And we do want a legend in this one. So we put it at the top, make it horizontal. The legend didn't need a title. I offset it a little bit to get it in the right location that I like. Consistent 14-point font size. And then we set the size and the opacity for those points. And that is the JSON for that one. Then we just make them nice and consistent as far as formatting and titles, and give it better placement. We'll keep our background color as white with 0 transparency. We'll give it a gray border with a 5-pixel rounded corner. Fix our second chart here. Let's go back and fix the font. You could do this in the theme as well. Get our placement. Fix our font. I think in the original I made this bold, so let's do that. So that gives us our 3 Deneb visuals. I hope you enjoyed this week's Workout Wednesday.